Oh, good morning to everybody. Good afternoon to some of you. Good night for the ones who are going to see the live afterwards. So, this is a live with Marcelo Namo. And we are going to be talking about conscious pleasure and conscious suffering. I will put here the title of the live for the ones who are going to enter afterwards. And Marcelo is already here. Good morning to everybody that is arriving. Let's see if I can. Okay. All right. So now, yes, I will invite Marcelo. Let's see. Hello, Marcelo. Good morning.
Hi, good morning, Alícia.
How are you doing?
I'm very good. It's a Saturday, and I've done 2 hours of yoga, a long session, and yeah, I'm feeling great. And the weather is amazing.
Yes, here is also amazing the weather. So for the ones who doesn't know you, do you want to present yourself, Marcelo?
Yeah, sure. So I've been through many different experiences in life, different jobs. I was graduated as a lawyer, and then I worked in marketing. I worked in the fashion industry for quite a few years. It was an amazing experience. But let's say I was working for big companies, which was very stimulating, but I started to feel like I couldn't express my potential, my identity, and many parts of myself tend to be suffocated in a big professional environment. So that's why I decided to work in the holistic world. So I left Europe. I went to Thailand, to Kopangan, and I practiced for quite a few months yoga and meditation. And the kind of yoga I was practicing was tantric yoga. So that opened a lot of new possibilities, new landscapes for me.
Thank you. For the ones also that, sorry, maybe
Yeah,
this is a little bit delayed.
This is what I'm facilitating now. It's tantric yoga, because I've practiced and also facilitated tantra in Europe, but it was more like a neo tantra, and it's amazing. The teachers I had are amazing, and they changed my life. But I feel like the yoga and the tantric yoga is more, for me, it works as safety net, like a safety foundation for life. So that's what I feel for myself is working, and I want to facilitate what works for me.
Exactly. Thank you. So for the ones who doesn't know me, my name is Alícia Despertar Holístico. And before I used to work as a nurse, and afterwards studied a bunch of holistic therapies. And in the end, it was Tantra and conscious sexuality that transformed my life. So now I'm a coach and therapist on these topics. And I'm helping women to transformate, to empower themselves, and to reconnect with their sexual energy, to release from limiting beliefs on sexuality, and help us to know how to work, how to cultivate and use this sexual energy for other purpose. So today, the topic is about conscious pleasure and conscious suffering. And for you, Marcelo, before we enter the topic, can you explain us what is the purpose or what is the difference of tantric yoga from the common yoga?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. Yeah, when we talk about tantric yoga, people are a little bit scared sometimes because tantra is much associated with sexual practices, which is partially true, you know. Tantra is a spiritual system that includes sexuality and channeling sexual energy to elevate consciousness and to expand energy. So when we talk about traditional tantra, there is many practices to achieve that, and not only through sexual practices. Okay, but what happens, I think, is that in Europe, since we don't have any spiritual system that includes sexuality, so we associated tantra with sexuality. So when we talk about tantric yoga, I think the specific specificity of the tantric yoga is that it includes the discipline of yoga, because yoga involves quite a lot of discipline. You know, you wake up at a certain hour and you rule your energetic body in a certain way that needs a frame, and you dedicate a lot of attention and energy to listening and to manipulate the physical body in a way. You go beyond the boundaries as well in yoga. And for this, we need discipline, which is called the bhakti. And in tantric yoga, we mix this, we put together this with the flow of tantra, the idea of flowing. So discipline and flow together. This is how I would define tantric yoga. And I will talk about gentle discipline. So it's a life discipline, but from a space of pleasure, from a space of being well. I always tell students, you don't need to be good at yoga. Nobody's expecting you to be good in your asanas, to have a great image, external image when you practice. But what I wish, my intention when I facilitate and when I teach, is that the person improves her or his life. So through the practice, I want you to improve your life, the way you live. I don't want you to be good in yoga, in your asanas. Nobody cares about that, you know. But what we care about is that you have a nice life system for yourself. And this is gentle discipline. And this is tantric
I remember, so for the ones who doesn't know, me and Marcelo, we are both teachers of the BeTantric community that Anand Rudra created. And both of us were the teachers at the BeTantric summer retreat this last September, which is always a very potent and transformative retreat for everybody, including for us as the teachers. I remember I participated at your workshop of Tantric Yoga. I don't know exactly the name of the class, but it was the first time that I practiced it, and it was really amazing for me. The way you were teaching and allow myself to go into this more in energy instead of being in the yang energy, and releasing the control, releasing the pattern, allowing myself to enter into this gentle, soft, and more surrendering energy. It was actually the first time that I actually got emotional in a yoga class, but a tantric yoga class. So I was very touched by your work. And also we enjoyed so much to talk and to have these conversations that I decided to invite you. So now coming to the title, the topic of this live, about conscious pleasure and conscious suffering. What is your perspective about, because for instance, some people might be questioning themselves about conscious suffering, but what is that? And conscious pleasure.
Yeah, I think the whole thing boils down to the alchemy of consciousness. So going through life and going through the experiences of life with consciousness, and sometimes the experience of life and the experience within life can be challenging. And I noticed that I tended to escape from that, especially when I was in Kopangan. I was in that island, a beautiful island, and COVID arrived. So the place where I was living, the ashram, was emptied all of a sudden. In 1 week, we went from 100 people, not 800, 100 people, to 8 people. And it was rain period. So I kept doing my practice, my 6 hours or 5 hours of yoga every day, with the rain, with all that, context that became pretty dark. And I was sad. I was sad, and I was like, what's going on? There's no reason for me to be sad. Okay, it's raining, but it's not reason to be sad. But it was actually my sadness that was showing up. The sadness I've always carried and that I never listened to. Because in living in a city, I used to live in Milan or London or Paris. Living in these beautiful cities, I was very blessed to live in such amazing places. I always had the occasion to escape from sadness. And sadness is actually the first chakra, it's in the root chakra. And it's the feeling of not being enough. It's the impact of that illusion that we have. I think we all have that. The original sin, not feeling enough. And this manifests or translates as sadness. So in living in a city, I had always the occasion to get drunk, use drugs, go for sexual experiences very easily, do shopping, and many other, entertaining experiences that could take me away from that sadness. But then, being in Kopangan, there was nobody in the ashram, and we were 8 people left, and it was quite a big place. And the rain and all that context that brought me to a situation that I had to go inwards. I had to trance into myself, within myself. And from there, I explored the sadness. I got quite intimate with it. And that gave me a lot of self knowledge. And some way, part of that sadness has dissolved, diluted. Only because I went through it. Only because I experienced, I didn't escape from it, and I just accepted. I accepted sadness. I accepted that I'm not feeling enough. I don't feel enough. And still now, very often I don't feel enough. I don't feel complete. But just accepting that is a key to elevate. And I think life is like that, it's a spiral that goes upwards, and half of that spiral is in light, so in a space of fun, entertainment, pleasure, and half of that spiral that goes up is in the dark, so it's in a space of struggling and suffering. So going through that suffering with consciousness allows to flow through, navigate that piece of the spiral upwards, and then reach again the light and the pleasurable part of the spiral that brings us up.
I think it's really interesting what... Sorry.
So I think consciousness needs to be applied in both situations, when we go through struggle, when we go through suffering, but also when we go through pleasure. Otherwise, it can become an addiction. So I think consciousness is an alchemy to go through life in an elevating vibe, elevating frequency. So when I write, consciousness of suffering has nothing to do with bondage, BDSM, or something like that, or pain, but it has more to do with the emotional body. Because we can actually go through pain without suffering. And for this, consciousness is a key.
Indeed. I think you touched some things that is really important, that in this life we are all the time trying to reach happiness. First, we understand happiness as a place to arrive, something like this. But in fact, happiness should be cultivated in our daily life, and the pleasure also. And all of us wants to be there and feeling happy and enjoy all the time. But life, as everything is there is a duality in life. We have the day and the night, the light and the dark, the sun and the moon, the masculine and the feminine, the yang and the yin. And as this duality integrates all dimensions of our life, we also have the pleasure and the suffering somehow, or the sadness or the anger, any type of emotion that make us, give us some emotional pain, just like you were saying. And we are trying to run away from this suffering, to avoid feeling the uncomfortable emotions. And I don't say negative emotions, because all the emotions are useful, and for me they are sacred. They are what guides our life, because they indicate us if this is the way or if it's not, and if it's aligned with our own heart and our own soul. So even the uncomfortable emotions, when we are feeling some anger, some sadness, some anxiety, etc., when we try to hide these emotions from ourselves, pretending that we are not feeling it, then we are making more pressure in a small space that is going to grow. The more we try to hide it, the more it's going to grow. And only going through this suffering and allowing ourselves to go through these emotions, it's when we can give them light, just like you were saying in this spiral, half of the spiral will be the light, half will be the dark. So only bringing the shades, the shadows, and the dark to the light, to the superficie, we can observe it, we can understand it, we can process it and transform it, giving it light to it. And in this process, of course, we are going to feel some discomfort going through this process, but this is also part of the duality. So we have to go down to be able to go up again. And life, it's like this, you know? So when we are avoiding our uncomfortable emotions, we are also afraid of connecting for real with the other, to be authentic in our relationships, not only love relationships, but also familiar, work, friends. And sometimes we are not able to express ourselves for real because we are afraid of ourselves, not because of the other, but we tend to project on the other. I'm afraid to tell him or to tell her this, but in fact I'm afraid to have this conversation with myself because I don't feel ready for it. I don't want to go out of my comfort zone. And when we allow ourselves to dive deep and to bring light into these shadows and to these uncomfortable emotions, it's when we start to feel more secure about ourselves, and we start to grow our self-confidence. We start to give more value to ourselves and be more able and more ready to face others, to face other circumstances that are not that easy, for instance. So I think it's really important to allow ourselves to go through this suffering, because then we can reach pleasure somehow. There is a comment here: for me, being conscious in suffering is extremely hard, because in that state I'm feeling dense emotions that have a strong gravity. I become lost in this suffering. Do you want to give a tip, Marcelo, as a man?
Thank you for the comment. I think it's called Lorenzo, no?
Mm-hmm.
I totally understand what he is saying, because I've been through that. And something I want to share for me, the consciousness is also a way to become more intimate with the feeling in one side, so understand the feeling, but on the same time it allows also to observe the feeling. Okay, so on one side I feel it with more intensity. On the other side, getting all that information from that feeling, I start to observe it, because the more I detect nuances of what is happening, the more I feel, the more I can become able to observe. And as soon as I start observing the feeling, I break the identification with it. So the suffering comes from identification. When Lorenzo is saying, I got lost in my suffering, this means that he was identified with his suffering. And the key to overcome, for example, abuse, trauma, is to break identification with what happened. You know, I am not what has been done to me. I am not that experience. I am not that memory. So I'm not going to drag it with me unconsciously and unconsciously identify with it. I'm going to observe. And as soon as I start observing, I become the observer, and that identification is broken. So I'm beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, thank you, Lisa. I just read Lisa Wise. Such beautiful.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. The live is going to be recorded, so you can watch afterwards. Thank you so much for your presence. So yes, in my case, I would say that even if it's this uncomfortable sensation of being dense and gravitating around the subject, one of the tips is, just like you said, not identifying with this. So I lived this situation, this circumstance that got me, that gave me some uncomfortable emotions, but what can I learn? So in this observation that you say, what can I learn with this? What could I do different? But also forgiving yourself for not doing different because you didn't have the consciousness to do different. But now you have, because now you are reflecting upon it and you are observing from the outer part, like an eagle eye perspective. And then you can, it's much more easy to advise some friends when we hear their situations, because we are in this eagle eye perspective. So if we can put ourselves out of our situation as being other person observing and take conclusions, okay, what can I learn with this? But then detach from what happens because it's in the past. So I should think in the past to just to learn what can I learn from there, just to bring what can I learn from there. But then focusing again in our present life, in our present moment, which is the call and the invitation of Tantra, to be in the present moment and to real connect with our body, with our thoughts, with our emotions, with our feelings, with our energy, the energy of our body, and this I will start already talking about the conscious pleasure, because sometimes we want to enjoy a lot, but we are stuck in the anxiety of something that is coming in the future and that we cannot change or control in this moment, or we are stuck thinking about some past situations that we still didn't process inside of us, emotionally talking. And there is people that really wants to allow themselves to enjoy the present moment, but they have so many things in their head that the energy in our body is in our mind and upper chakras. And we are so connected to our mental body that we don't allow ourselves to, our energy to go down to our lower chakras, to get more grounded, to connect with the sensations of the body. And that's is the door to opening a conscious pleasure sensation.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'm gonna give an example, and an asana, a yoga asana, where I didn't know why. Each time I was getting into that asana, or allowing that asana to manifest through my body, because that's the way we visualize asanas, no? In Tantric yoga, we don't enter the asana, but we allow the asana to manifest from inside to outside. I showed you the asana, and I didn't understand why I was getting angry each time I was doing that. It's Supta Peditasana, it's this one. So I don't know if you can see me. No, you cannot see me.
The baby posture?
Yeah. It's this posture. I think it's called the happy baby, something like this in Europe. But in
Happy baby, exactly.
Yeah, Supta Pedita. So this asana here, can you see?
Yes, we can see.
So this one is very challenging emotionally for many people. Actually, for me, I was very challenged when I was expressing that asana. I was getting angry, and as you can see, it's an asana that opens completely the hip and exposes the genital area, exposes an area that is very vulnerable as well, you know, which is the area of the perineum, the pelvic floor, on men and on women, both. So it took me time. It took me months actually to understand and to connect with what made that asana so difficult for me and why these emotions were showing up. Then I went back to my memories and I understood why, the reason why. Observation, pure observation has been key to overcome this anger and sadness that was showing up. So until I didn't realize and I observed that, the memory and the trauma was there. Totally unconscious, underlaying, yes, it was under. I couldn't really feel it, but it was ruling my life. It was governing a lot of decisions that I would make or I wouldn't make, which is even worse. Many things I wouldn't make because there was this conditioning and this memory from the past. So just becoming aware, observing, has dissolved the whole trauma, the whole memory, the whole limitation it implies. So yes, observation and consciousness. Observation is consciousness.
For some people, it's easy, or it's more easy by observing and bringing all these emotions and all these realizations to the surface. It's more easy to deal by themselves, but sometimes the person is not able. So all these emotions are coming up to the surface, and the person doesn't know how to deal with it, how to process it. In that case, I recommend this person to search for instance, for a coach, someone who can help them going through these emotions and process these emotions. So there's people for everything, no? And you also touched something that before you were saying regarding the taking like the drugs and the getting drunk, going shopping, which are some strategies to avoid the pleasure. And you also once said something that to allow ourselves to go through the pleasure, that we go out of our egocentric person, let's say like this. Can you explain this? When we allow ourselves to go through the pleasure, how can we go out of our ego?
Yeah, I think very often we associate pleasure with hedonism, and it's not necessarily that. I don't have anything against hedonism. I think it's a very powerful life motivation and engine for life. But it's happened to me that I was associating pleasure, or I was searching for pleasure in pure hedonism was egoistic. And it was just a way to escape from other things, you know.
From the heart.
Yeah. Instead of understanding, what do I really need? Do I need that external things to be fine? Usually the answer is no. I don't need that to be fine. I may search for this because I want the experience. And that's totally fine. That's totally legitimate. I have nothing against even drugs if used with consciousness. The problem is the relationship I have with the drugs. Okay, it's not the drug itself. It's not the experience of a psychedelic or drug or cannabis or alcohol. There's nothing wrong with that. What is wrong is my relationship with that. When I depend and I rely on that to be complete or to feel better. This is the problem. So the way to revert, for example, an addiction is not to block the access to that thing or to put a cross or associate that thing with something negative. Is to understand why is my relation with that external thing, substance or relationship, work. I used to be addicted to work. I was working so many hours a day or a week. The problem is not work, it's my relationship with that. The problem is not the cannabis, it's my relationship with cannabis. So understand why. And in order to dissolve, again, it's the same as the trauma, you know. In order to dissolve the unhealthy relationship with that external thing, I need to go through it with consciousness. So I need to dissolve my relationship with cannabis, which I think is not doing good, it's harming me, it's not doing good to me. So what do? I understand, why do I want that? Why am I looking for that? Okay, because it's going to make me feel better, because it's going to entertain me. Okay, I got it. So now I'm going to smoke. And what happens if I smoke? Knowing what I want, conscious of what I'm doing, and then I get conscious of what I got. This completely breaks this unhealthy relationship with that. And it's the same thing on any meditation, yoga practice. They all our pranayama, breathing as well. We can get addicted to pranayama, to breathing, to transform the energetical state of the person, of the emotional state. You know, I'm feeling bad, I do pranayama, so I transform my energetic system and emotional system, and I think I feel better afterwards. But the root hasn't changed. Why I'm feeling bad hasn't changed. So I'm going to feel bad again. So that makes a lot of people become addicted to even yoga or spirituality, you know. Consciousness is a different gate to access that unhealthy behavior or addiction. And then you break the relationship and you renew the relationship. Now I can smoke cannabis once a year or once a month and it's enough. Because I don't feel I need it anymore. I enjoy the experience, but I don't need it anymore.
Grabbing something that you just said and gathering a comment that Marga did. Thank you for this session. I'm addicted to distraction. My life was not as the typical book, so no babies, and show off that I'm an independent woman. And that question doesn't hurt if I distract myself. And I think one of the most important things is for us to question ourselves. Why do we want to engage in this distraction or drugs or any activity? What really motivates us inside to go through it, to go for it? And when the answer, the honest and authentic answer that we should hear from our inner voice, then we will know, okay, do I want to run away from my emotions for what I don't want to deal with? Or am I really engaging in this activity to really get the pleasure of it? Because I really want to have the experience of pleasure. So the conscious and intention about whatever we do or whatever we go for, it's really, really important. So then we are aware that if we are trying to run away or if we are trying to connect with ourselves. and with our with the pleasure of the experience.
It's very easy, very, very, very easy, and very simple. I'm feeling well, I'm not feeling well. That's it. If I'm feeling well doing certain thing, that means I'm vibrating with the Creator. I'm vibrating with myself or with God. It's the same. If I'm not feeling well, that means there is a tension, there is a clash, there is a conflict. So I'm not vibrating with the Creator. I'm not vibrating with myself. I'm not vibrating with God. Listen to yourself very deeply, very, very deeply. Don't do anything. Stop everything. And how am I feeling? What is my heart saying? He will say, good or bad, yes or no. He will not give intermediate answers, in between answers, ambiguous answers. The heart is not conceptual. He will say, yes, it's right, no, it's not right. Just listen to that. If you feel he's saying, this relationship with that thing, with sex, alcohol, work, drugs, whatever, is not doing good to you, then it's not coming from your true, deepest self. And that means there is something to fix. To fix it, like you said, there is a coach, there is many possibilities. Alícia, I think it's a great possibility you are pointing at. And there is also the possibility just to be by yourself, bring yourself to a state of deep consciousness of what you do, why you do it, and things unfold by themselves.
When you said like to see if we are feeling good doing this activity or not, for instance, if it would be me some years ago, that I would have a lot of work during the week, and I didn't know how to manage all the stress that was coming from it. And on weekends, I just wanted to go party and drink some drinks, some alcohol. And if you would ask me at that time, Alícia, do you feel well when you take alcohol? I would say, yes, for sure, I love it. That's exactly what I need. But in fact, before drinking the alcohol, I was not feeling well, and that's why I wanted to engage on it. So I would say more to how do I feel before I go for this activity, and what leads me to this activity, to take this decision. I would say maybe just to not to be more clear. Let's say like this. Regarding before you were saying the position of yoga that you would feel very vulnerable because the genitals were exposed, and it's totally understandable. And you touched this subject that I would like to just talk a little bit, the vulnerability, because as in the beginning Lorenzo was saying, but it feels uncomfortable, and I feel attached to this. Whenever we are not used, and especially men, not used to open their space of vulnerability, but also a lot of women is happening this, because now we are all trying to control and count with everything, especially here in Europe, to count on like I know exactly what is going to do, how is going to happen, when, what time, and what to do if it doesn't go right. So, and sometimes we forgot to allow ourselves to enter this vulnerability, which is so important. And of course, that if we are not used to open this space, then it will be uncomfortable and out of our comfort zone. But the more, and I have experienced this the last years, the more I go out of my comfort zone, the more I expand my comfort zone. So if I allow myself to go into this vulnerability, my vulnerability starts to get stronger somehow, stronger in the way that I feel more comfortable to show my vulnerability to others. And because I feel safe, I feel secure with myself, because I know how to put my healthy limits out when I feel attacked from or invaded from someone. But then, because I trust myself and I cultivated my self-love, my self-esteem, my self-confidence, then I'm open to show up my vulnerability, because I know nobody will invade my space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. Thank you. That's a very nice one. I also through yoga I realized that when I put together my strength and my vulnerability, then becomes power.
Mm-hmm.
So strength has this a meaning of fighting, no effort, strength, effort. Vulnerability is opening and accepting that we can be harmed. So when we don't show vulnerability, we are fighting. So as soon as I stop fighting that effort and express vulnerability, that together with my strength and my natural capacity to express, to manifest effort, it doesn't go in the direction to cover my vulnerability, but it goes in the direction to express my potential. Okay? So when I express my vulnerability and I stop wasting my energy on covering it, my strength, my effort, they become power. And the power is unlimited. It never finishes. Power is going to flow and bring you to a state of manifesting further and further and further your more elevated version of yourself, your more elevated self. And this is the heart frequency, you know. The heart is about letting go. And this is vulnerability. But as long as you don't let go and the blood that cannot come out, the blood is going to be able to come in.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. For instance, I will never forget, and I will share this story here, because I think it was really inspiring for me at the BeTantric retreat. It was so transformative, so transformational for me, that I have also this more vulnerable day where I was going through my own process and got very, very emotional. And in that same day, I was going to do a workshop, and I was in this with my all vulnerability open because of the past the past workshops that with you, with Marta, with Sebastian. So I was so much in my vulnerability that I didn't feel comfortable to facilitate the workshop at that moment. And I will never forget your words that you told me and you invited me. So do it from your place of vulnerability, and find the strength on that. And that was really inspiring, and it helped me a lot to go on with my workshop. And it was actually beautiful, because as a teacher at BeTantric retreat for the first time, of course, I wanted to be in my full power. And I was in this vulnerable place, but still it was beautiful to realize that I could do it, that the workshop, maybe it would have to really start like this, because the invitation for the participants were to go inside their vulnerability and work from there. So it started to reflect, and universe, he's very there's a big wisdom on universe, so it didn't happen by accident, just like Anand Rudra says, and I always have this with me, there is no casualities, there is causalities. So it was really beautiful, and I'm very thankful and grateful to you. And I shared this story already showing up my vulnerability, because I also have it, to help other people that are going to see this live or are seeing now live, to inspire them also to believe in themselves, and also believe that this vulnerable place is also a very powerful place to start giving.
Yeah. Yes, yes. It was a beautiful session, Alícia. Yeah, it was a great session that you gave. And the triggers were there, I could see, but you navigated through that, you know. And I think it's when we accept our own vulnerability, and what can happen is not that bad, you know, we survive anyway. And I realized that my vulnerability is usually covered by ego, because what makes me feel unprotected or vulnerable is the illusion, the idea that I'm going to be aggressed by other people. It can happen. Yes, I can be aggressed, but covering my vulnerability is not going to protect me from that, you know. Usually I protect myself from things that I cannot be protected from. And it doesn't make sense. It's actually the ego, the illusion of being separated from the other people, that activate this defense mechanism that requires an incredible amount of energy. And it's an energy and attention that would be amazing if channeled in with a different focus in a different direction. Yeah, and I think this is a great example that you gave, you know. And yeah, I think it's universe telling something, giving us what we need, not giving us what we think that we want.
Exactly.
Embracing
and
that.
To accept that flow.
Yeah. Embracing that, go into the process and see what happens. I think it's arrogance, you know, to believe that we have control of our lives, to believe that we go in the direction that is good for us, and channel and control life that way. I think it's pure arrogance. Yeah, I don't mean we shouldn't try to go where we think we should go. That's for sure, but I think it's important to give up the idea that we control and that we protect our lives. It's just not possible.
Indeed. Marcelo, I'm just seeing the time. We are almost in the end, plus more 4 minutes, 5 minutes. So can I ask you, how people can find you to work with you, and what type of work you do with the people? How do you help your clients?
I mean, to get in touch, to connect is on, I think Instagram is the best way. I used to have a website, but it expired, and I didn't renew it because it was not really efficient. So yes, Instagram is the best way. Through yourself.
Marcelo Namo.
Yeah, Marcelo Namo. Through yourself as well. I mean, we are connected, so if you know somebody, if I know somebody, I think it's good to exchange, open our networks as much as possible. Yeah. And in terms of practices, what I was saying before is that I facilitate what works for me, because I worked many years in corporate and trying to sell things that didn't really work for me, or I believed in some of them. I didn't believe in many of them, and I had to sell these, and that was a big struggle, and I had to leave and change life path. That's why I went to Thailand and to study Tantra and yoga. So now what I facilitate is what works for me, and what works for me is Tantric yoga, conscious sexuality as well. And I want to be working on surrendering through some specific practices, and also shamanic tantra. So put together the words of the shamanism, the plant medicines, and the different space of consciousness they bring us to, and they offer to us, together with yoga, with conscious sexuality, and tantric body work. But this is something that is, it's a new chapter that is gonna be unveiling very, very soon.
And you are also giving classes at BeTantric Community, the online platform that I mentioned before, right?
Yes, yes.
All right. So people can also join.
Yes, yes. If somebody wants to try, I usually offer, like, I give the possibility to try for 1 month without any a commitment, without any investment neither. So no need to pay anything. You just try for 1 month and see what happens. If you feel like there's a little switch within yourself, you make some steps that you feel that are good for you. You can just join for a weekly based lessons of tantric yoga. We do pranayama, we do breathing. Through breathing you transform the emotional body. But I don't practice that by itself, because, like I was saying before, it can even create addiction. It's good to transform your emotional body and go from a space of darkness and negativeness and all the substances that keep that emotional body in the negative space, which is mainly, I think it's sodium, some ions, and you transform that through the breathing and through consciousness, and you get into a positive space. But it's very important to know why do you want to be in the positive space, why you want to feel better, and what is making you feel bad. This is fundamental. Consciousness of being is the masculine principle. It needs to be there. Otherwise, we keep practicing, and then after 1 week, we stop practicing. We are in the starting point. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Marcelo. I will also share with the people. So I have this online program, Awakening the Tantric Goddess, program of transformation and empowerment of women. And I recently launched an online journey for men to learn about the mysteries of feminine pleasure in the optic of Tantra and conscious sexuality. Thank you. So you can also contact me here in Instagram, Alícia _Despertar _Holístico, or on Facebook, Alícia Despertar Holístico. Besides this, I also do online coaching sessions, individual ones. I do also couple sessions on Tantra and conscious sexuality. And beside of this, I also do conference, some talks, some retreats, some workshops from time to time. So and some lives, just like I invite Marcelo, I also used to do some other lives with other people. So you are very welcome. Marcelo, thank you so much. We crossed already the time, so I really have to to go. Thank you so much for your contribution, for your presence. It was really a pleasure to share this conversation with you. Thank you so much for the ones who were here at the live. And if you like it, you can also share. It's going to be recorded. Do you want to say any last words, Marcelo, before we go?
No, I mean, yes, thank you for the space, Alícia. It was very nice. And to anyone asking questions, if you have questions, please feel free to ask without any commitment, any obligation. I'm happy to be here to give, to share my experience and give answers if I have some answers to give.
Thank you so much. And I just remember, so there is this BeTantric community that is having classes from different teachers, in which Marcelo is also giving classes, and you can apply and pay a monthly value, which is really cheap actually, and you can access to different type of classes and work on yourself. So this is the BeTantric community. You can ask me or Marcelo. It was created by Anand Rudra, and we are together in this because of Anand. So thank you so much, Anand, for joining us together somehow. And wish you a really good day, really great day. Thank you for the comments. Thank you for the participants. And once again, thank you so much, Marcelo. It was a pleasure. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. Bye-bye.